Erev Tov Charim. Oh gosh, we have been in a very interesting broadcast for Patreon. And let me close out some of these windows here. I've got so many windows open, and I'm sure it may end up affecting the broadcast, the way the broadcast is the way it would be held here. And I don't want that to happen. I've got to leave some of those windows open over there, so let me get switched over here to the other side. I'm going to share some things with you guys I think that's very important, that would no doubt be good for you guys to know. Oh, by the way, that is the Saudi prince and Zippy Livni. We were in a meeting together. It's been a little while back since they did that meeting there last year. I was talking to the people on Patreon about different things, but mainly looking into how that Israel tries to manufacture prophecies, and looking into support things like that are going on. Very, very, very interesting things. I'll kind of share one thing though I shared with the people there at the end of the broadcast here on our live broadcast there. Listen, we are not doing our live chat. There's different reasons that I have behind that. I want to thank our moderators that have been a part of this. Not saying that I'm going to fully stop it altogether, but there are some issues that we're dealing with that we need to kind of be a little bit more careful with this. So for right now, we're gonna hold back on actually doing the live broadcast there. So hopefully, we are actually, yes, we are up and running. So we are on there. Just want to make sure of that there. Let's get right into what's going on in the world today, though. The Trump administration is warning Russia that supplying Syria with an advanced missile defense system would be a major mistake and should be reconsidered. As I'm watching what's going on right here, guys, I really feel like
the Trump administration is warning Russia that
we are. Listen to this.
An advanced missile defense system would be a major mistake and should be reconsidered. John Bolton says delivery of the Russian weapons would be a significant escalation in already high tensions in the region.
Now, you know what gets me about this? I have to just be frank about it, friends. Why is it that every nation is allowed to defend themselves except Syria? Or any other nation for that matter? I agree Israel has a right to defend itself. I believe America has a right to defend ourselves as an American citizens. Russia should have a right to defend themselves. Why is it, though, that Syria is not allowed to? That makes no sense whatsoever. Israel has just been allowed to go in the country without any impunity whatsoever and just bomb anybody that feels so to do so. And that's not right. It's not right. And it's not treating our neighbor as ourself by a long shot. And this is one reason why we often say, when we believe in standing with Israel, we believe in standing with Israel truly with wisdom and knowledge, not just blindly standing for the state of Israel, especially in light of prophecy. God says in Daniel 11, tells Daniel, Gabriel says, the violent of your people are going to try to establish division. And this is what's happening. It's not just the Israeli leaders either. This is what they're working with Vatican officials to try to manufacture prophecy the way that they see it should go. Now, I wouldn't say, though, that the prophets didn't recognize what they were going to do, and of course they're able to write the prophecies accordingly, even as Isaiah 17, Damascus will be a ruinous heap, but God also says through the prophet Isaiah in verse 10, he puts the blame on Israel. Not just the state of Israel, but that's all 12 tribes, including the United States, the European Union, where the 10 lost tribes have been dispersed in different parts of the world there, and how they come against Syria as well, and the fortress of Ephraim is destroyed, which the Christians that live in Damascus, that's what the fortress of Ephraim represents, they will be totally wiped out, as according to the sins that are being committed by these nations, by the United States. And God says, you have forgotten the God of your salvation, and you are not mindful of the rock. Okay? This is, and that's paraphrased, this is what's going on. And so if you're going to stand with Israel with some wisdom. And I'm going to go more into the news here, but I want to say one other thing. I'll tell you what I share with people on Patreon right at the closing of the message. So if you're a follower of Patreon and you're going to go later tonight and try to watch this broadcast, which I don't know if I'll be able to get it up before it gets too late here. I'll try to get it edited and posted up. you might want to make sure you listen to the last half first, because I'm really trying to explain what's going on and how that Israeli leaders, especially in the case Prime Minister Netanyahu now, is trying to manufacture those visions. He's doing exactly as Daniel said. He's doing all the violent things to try to make visions come to pass. But then it just finally come to me near the end of the broadcast, and I said to the people on the video there, I said, wait a minute, we need to stop just for a moment and think about this, because I often hear, people like to quote the scripture where it says, whoever shall bless Israel, God will bless, and whoever curses Israel, God will curse. Now, it's actually to Abraham is the promise made. Whoever blesses you will be blessed, whoever curses you will be cursed. Now, this is to Abraham himself and to his descendants. Well, does that then exclude Ishmael's side? We've got to think about it. And Ishmael's side is not doing the right things either, but neither is the Israeli people doing the right thing either. Neither one are doing the right things in modern days. And in fact, we're looking at this and we say this, but we fail to realize God, for example, wants us to stand for what's truth and righteousness. This is what he wants you to stand for. And Abraham stood for truth and righteousness, and he did the right things. He was doing the right things. So my thought for you would be to think like this here. If you were in Israel 2,000 years ago, what side would you have been on? Think about this for a moment. 2,000 years ago, we will say at the time when John the Baptist is already here, we'll say that Yeshua is already walking the streets as a rabbi of Israel, and he is teaching the message that he is bringing. What side would you have been on? Now, I realize Israeli News Live is watched by Christians, Jews, Muslims, every faith that you can probably imagine watch, including Hindus as well, all right? So which side would you have been on? Well, my Jewish friends, you might say, well, I would have been on the side of the Pharisees. All right, just hold that thought then, all right? The Christians would say, well, we would have been on the side of Yeshua. Yeah, hold that thought as well. In fact, for the Christian, I want to ask you this. If you would have been on the side of Yeshua 2,000 years ago, why are you not on his side today? That's something to sink home. It really will if you think about it. Because what I see happening is that most of the Christian community is on the side of the Pharisees today rather than on the side of Yeshua and his apostles. Let me explain what I'm saying, what I mean by saying this. All right? In Israel today, there are Jewish people that are coming to the point in their life that they believe that Yeshua is indeed the Messiah. They are believing upon him, and as a result, they are suffering persecution in Israel. Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu would say, no, the Christians do not suffer persecution in Israel. That is totally unfounded. Well, we have interviewed families from Israel that do suffer persecution that are believers, and you will find that it is generally those Jews that came to Israel because they were Jews, and they came there as Jews, but then ended up believing in Yeshua afterwards. The Hyde family was the most high-profile case that we interviewed recently. They were in Charisma magazine about how actually her son, how that they were trying to deport them from the nation and remove their citizenship, remove their right to their passports because they believe in Yeshua as the Messiah. So they're dealing with government entities that are trying to throw them out of the country because of their faith in Yeshua. But now, if you happen to be part of the elite, the evangelical movement that's for the New World Order, or if you're part of the Catholic groups there that are for the New World Order, then yes, you're going to be more than likely open with open arms. But I also have other friends there that very much speak to the Orthodox community on a regular basis that they've said to me, Steve, whatever you do, don't say to the people what I'm doing, because they would throw me out of the country. And they're Jews that are believers, but they know the danger for speaking the truth, what can happen to them. Now, these people are dealing with the exact same threats as 2,000 years ago. And oddly enough, everything's being set up like it was 2,000 years ago. We have a Sanhedrin council once again. We have Roman prefectors there in Israel that can dictate how the Israeli government does their own rules there. You don't believe that? What about the one Orthodox Jew that was saying that all the Catholic churches should be dismantled and thrown out of the country there because of their idol worship? Next thing you know, the Vatican demands Israel that this man be arrested, and he was arrested. The Pope of Rome, Prime Minister Netanyahu, goes to the rabbi over Mount Zion there where the tomb of David is and requests halakha law be given the Vatican Mount Zion. That's Talmudic law, by the way, in case of those of you that don't know. So everything that was 2,000 years ago is being set up in Israel all over again. And yes, the Jews are once again going back before the courts, the synagogue courts no less, and being tried. So what side would you stand on then is my question, especially amongst the Christian believers. You know, that say that we have to we have to stand with Israel. We have to stand. If they want to blow up Syria, let them blow up Syria. Well, 2,000 years ago, what if they wanted to do that then too? You know, because who was actually supportive of the Syrians 2,000 years ago? It was Yeshua, right? Remember that one passage where the word spread in Syria that he was there healing the sick, and they came in a huge droves into Israel. And what did it say? All of their sick were healed. Not even like in the case in Israel, every one of them were healed. And they went back home to Syria rejoicing. So what side do you stand on? Because Yeshua 2,000 years ago stood for the Syrian people. And Yeshua did not send weapons to the different terrorist factions that were killing the Christians in Syria. Instead, Yeshua healed the sick and sent them home as a blessed people in Syria. So what side would you be on? All right, think about it. Now, in the case of my Jewish friends that are listening, let me share to you in this respective here. 2,000 years ago, the Pharisees of then are the exact same Orthodox community of today. Now, Rabbi Tovia Singer, a very well-respected rabbi, I know Rabbi Singer, we communicate back and forth from time to time. He has said that the Pharisees of then are the Orthodox community of today. All right, now, the only difference between 2,000 years ago of the Pharisee community then and the Pharisees of today is the fact that we don't have a temple and we're not offering sacrifices. But we're still following a Talmudic tradition, except now we have a written Talmud versus the oral Talmud, and maybe there was some form of written as well back then, we don't know, but we do know that the Babylonian and the Jerusalem Talmud were written several hundred years after Yeshua, so that they would not forget what the Talmud or the oral Talmud was. They considered this to be the oral law of Moses. My point is that 2,000 years ago, God must have been the most anti-Semite of all, if you were to, God forgive me for saying it like this, but I'm trying to make a point, Lord, so that people understand. Because God felt like that Israel was definitely not doing something that they're supposed to be doing, and he had them all exiled out of the land, even according to the prophecies that he'd prophesied through his prophets beforehand, that they would be thrown out of the country. Now, the Orthodox community has returned today doing the exact same things that were being done 2,000 years ago, and the only reason we're not being thrown out of the country today is because he has sent us home so that our eyes could come open so that we would recognize who the Mashiach really is. So we got to begin to wake up and say to ourselves, we're not doing anything different than 2,000 years ago, right? So again, I would have to ask you, what side would you want to be on? Maybe you might want to think about being on the side of those that were believing in Yeshua, because it didn't go into exile because of the believers in Yeshua. We went into exile because of what we were doing. Because even after the believers of Yeshua, after Yeshua himself died on this cross and resurrected, well, the next thing we know, more persecution on the believers of Yeshua. Maybe that's what we were doing wrong. Maybe persecuting all these Christians is what caused us to get thrown out of the country. And not to mention, we're even breaking the commandments that God gave Moses. Moses told us when we come into the land, do not do, above all things, we were supposed to recognize not to oppress the people that were in the land. Now granted, he told Joshua when he went into the land to get rid of these different nations, man, woman, and child, because why? They were part of the Nephilim. That is written in the book of the book of Numbers in the Hebrew language, where you read the word giants, it is Nephilim. So for the Christian that doesn't believe that there were Nephilim in those days, you need to take a look at it again, because it was Nephilim. So we were basically eradicating the land of all these huge giants, not of human beings that were normal, and even as Jude said, they were preordained to this destruction. Now he's actually talking about the ones that crept in unaware, so undoubtedly they figured out how to change their size and not be giants anymore. That's a different subject altogether. If you watch Patreon, you'll get an idea of that. But the point is what side would you be on? Would you be on the warmongering side? Or would you be on the side of Yeshua? I would choose his side. And that's the side I'm defending today. That's why I stand with my brothers and sisters in Israel. And I pray for my people for their eyes to come open. That's what I'm doing. And then we can fulfill the prophecy a whole lot better than what we're doing. Now as we continue on though, this issue with Russia. Russia is sending in the S-300 anti-missile system to Syria after their IL-20 was crashed. And I actually just found out too, and I'm not sure where this is at. Let me see. Yeah, the electronic warfare system arrives in Syria. The report equipment intended to, I think I actually got it over here. Here we go. Russia's electronic warfare system has arrived in Syria, according to reports there. The Times of Israel is reporting that the equipment is there, and they're going to put this stuff into service there. Russia's trying to make sure that their pilots don't get shot down. Now, I realize Israeli generals are saying that, well, we were already back at base. The Russians are showing their satellite imagery that says, no, it's just to the opposite. You were there and you used our Russian plane as your cover to bomb indiscriminately inside of Syria. And again, if Israel is trying to defend themselves, I would understand it. But the point is even though Iran has been trying to help topple ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, and a whole lot of these other jihadists that have been trying to overthrow the country, that Israel, United States, UK, Germany, and all these other thugs have been trying to support these thugs that are killing the Christians, what side do we stand on? Think about it, guys. You want to be blessed of God. You want to truly be blessed of God? Then think about what God's Word says. Stand with the Word of God. All right? And God is wanting His people's eyes, Israel's eyes, to come open. And He clearly says that they would be blind until they recognize the Messiah. Then their eyes will be open. But as it is right now, we already see that according to the prophecies, whether it be Paul of Romans or prophecies of David and Moses, etc., that they would be blind. But oddly enough, the Christian is prophesied to be blind according to Revelation as well, chapter 3, the Laodicean church, who says that they have need of nothing because they are rich. But he says, knowest thou not, you are blind, wretched, miserable, naked, and don't know it. So maybe that's how the prophecy goes when he said, if the blind lead the blind, don't they both fall in the ditch? Sure they do. It is a problem, no doubt, and let's take a look here. Also, Putin on a telephone call today with Netanyahu confirmed the blame of the Israeli Air Force in the tragedy with the IL-20. I'm sure Prime Minister Netanyahu was very firm, saying that it was not Israel's fault. I can't really say one way or the other, but I do realize that this situation that's going on right now, just because Syria wants to defend itself, Russia wants to make sure that the Syrians don't make another mistake and their own plane be targeted because the S-300 system is advanced enough to distinguish between the two. But Israel has already promised that they would take out the missile system if it is brought into the country. And I'm sure they will. Bolton is making it quite clear that they're not going to stand for it either. So what's going to happen? Will the Israelis stand down, or excuse me, will the Syrians stand down? Will Russia cave in and not deliver the system? Or will they deliver it and we end up in an all-out war? I do know one thing. There is still that prophecy yet to be fulfilled. 2/3 of the people of Israel will die in a battle. How could God allow 2/3 to die? Or maybe it's a result of our own doings. You know, I'm reminded of Shimon Samantov, who was on our broadcast once before, an Israeli believer in Yeshua, and he says that Netanyahu, he said, truly is the man that God has chosen. He said, but let me explain. He will be the one that will bring all the destruction upon the Israeli people. He said the 2/3 of Israel that will be killed will be as a result of his own policies. He said, so in that knowledge, he said, I support him. He said, because it is fulfillment of biblical prophecies. He said, but as far as what he does, he said, it's not right what he's doing. But it will usher in the coming of the Mashiach. Because after all, the Prime Minister of Israel is not the one that delivers Israel. It'll be the Messiah. And of course, God will deal with the nations that have come against Israel. But have you ever thought maybe perhaps that God deals with those nations that come against Israel, which, by the way, Israel is not limited to 3 tribes. Maybe God is coming to protect Israel that is on a global scale. The 12 tribes of Israel, that her eyes have come open to recognize who indeed her Messiah really is. It is coming to defend them. After all, that is his beloved, his wife. And there are those that are Gentiles that have been grafted in as well. Even like in the case of the story of Joseph, when he married the Egyptian woman, and Manasseh and Ephraim were grafted in to the olive tree of Israel by Jacob. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Consider supporting the broadcast. If you want somebody to tell you the truth, I will do my best to always be honest and truthful with you. I don't always say it'll be pleasant. And don't be afraid, little amounts doesn't matter. Just the fact that you care enough to support the broadcast in a time when not many are going to stand for what's truth. IsraeliNewsLive.org is our website. If you have any trouble in being a part there, you can also visit our Patreon account, patreon.com/Israeli News Live. And you can donate as little as $1 a month over there. You can donate even more if you prefer, $5 a month, $10 a month, whatever God lays on your heart. We certainly would appreciate that. Also, one other reminder as well, December the 2nd, our web guy has been putting everything together for the website where you can register for the conference on December the 2nd. It is a one-day conference, but it's going to be from 9 a.m. till about 8 p.m. It's going to be a long conference. We'll have a lunch break, and we'll have small breaks in the middle there. We will have that site up and running hopefully within the next couple of days to where you can be a part of this, and I know it will be a blessing to you. Listen, I'm telling you, you're going to find out some things that you've never heard before, and I will share also in the Kennedy assassination while I am in this conference, and the only reason I'm actually going to touch on this because when I worked with the CIA, my own partner, there has been speculation from other colleagues that he was involved in the planning process of that, and of course you will find out the intricate sides of the CIA working that particular case there. I only know one angle of it, so I have looked at the other sides of it, and I do believe that when, in fact, I actually know someone that was on the Warren Commission as well. He's still living. He's way up in his 80s. He was also a close friend of my own partner, so I do realize the cover-ups that were there. I'm sure the government doesn't want you to know about that either. So we'll be going into that, and of course I'll be dealing with the issues all the way up to the Bush administration, the cover-ups that were happening, and all. It's the same situation, even all the way back to the time before Kennedy. And of course, Kennedy was trying to change the world. He's trying to bring in a peace and stop the wars. And so I really consider him a very admirable man. And the world looks at him as an admirable man, but you have no idea how many of them hated him, including his own vice president. I know that's not something most people like to hear. But I think the one trial that was brought by, was it Jim Garrison that brought the trial, Mr. Clay Shaw, is probably more accurate in describing in his court case what actually happened. I can believe that because I know some of the details that are not being told to you. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. God bless you. Thank you for watching tonight, and we hope to see you soon. Shalom, shalom. in a world, of course, of Ein Shalom.